Hello students, welcome to this Frames 5 video tutorial on Fire, Part 4. Please open Frames 5 from your application screen and please open the previous saved file called Fire. So we've gotten pretty far, we're almost done. So we're going to add a few more hand-drawn touches to make it really look realistic. Alright, so I'm not going to start on frame 1, I'm going to start on frame 2. From the toolbar panel here, the tool panel, I'm going to click on pencil. And again, it should remember the last time we used the pencil. The last time we used the pencil was when we drew the yellow innermost layer. So I'm going to keep the width the same. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the width just slightly. Now, I'm going to change the color to red. So what I'm going to do is, sometimes when you watch fire, you'll see these little bits of flame kind of escape from the main flame. So that's what we're going to do. So they're not very large and they don't really escape very far. So we're just going to try and draw one right here. Okay, it's almost like a teardrop. And it doesn't always have to be a teardrop. It can be kind of a sharp shape like this. Okay. And we don't want to draw too many of them. We don't want to overdo it. So that looks pretty nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip a couple frames in the timeline at the bottom. And then I'm going to skip a couple and then I'm going to click on this frame randomly. So then what I want to do is I want to do the same thing. Okay. And again, try to avoid this kind of looping here. So I'm going to undo. Don't like that. And try it again. Okay, something like that. And it kind of looks like a fish, so I'm going to try that again. Now, because you're drawing something smaller this time, it's a little bit harder to get kind of something accurate. All right, so let's put another one over here. Now again, it's random, right? Okay. So once you've got that, I'm going to skip a couple frames on the bottom. I'm going to click on a new frame from the timeline, and I'm going to do the same thing. This is not good here. So I'm going to try that again. How about that? That looks pretty good. And I'll put another one up here. Put a small one. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to skip a couple frames on the timeline. I'm going to slide my slider over just so that I can see all of the frames that I still have to go. And I'm going to do the same thing. Okay. And maybe for this one, I'll add 3. Okay. So let's skip a couple frames. Again, you don't have to skip the same number every time. It could be fairly random. Okay. And I'm going to skip a couple frames. I'm going to use my slider so I can see how many frames I have left. Okay. Maybe I'll add another one here. I'll put one over here. Okay. All right. Skip a couple frames and keep going. So in this animation, we really get to practice kind of hand-drawn elements. And this is going to help you later when you work on your project. Okay, I'm almost at the end of all of my frames. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my slider and go all the way back. And this time, remember I started on frame 2. So this time I'm going to start on frame 3 and I'm going to change my color and I'm going to change it to orange. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create some orange little bits that fly out. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to randomly kind of skip a few. Now, we don't have to add little bits to every single frame. Again, we want to have it fairly random. So I'm going to keep going. Okay. And again, I don't want to pick a frame that's already got the red bits. So click on frames that don't have any extra bits. Okay. And I'm going to keep going. You should know what to do by now. Okay. I'm going to use my slider, excuse me. I'm going to use my slider. Keep going. Okay. Use my slider, keep moving throughout my movie. And I'll go right to the second last frame. This one kind of looks like a heart. Actually, both of them look like a heart, so I don't want that. Okay. So now that I've finished my orange ones, I think you guessed it, we're going to go back and add in a few yellow ones. So again, we don't have to do as many because we're getting to a point where we have a lot of frames that have those little bits. So I'm just going to have a couple here. Okay, maybe one or two really small ones. And then I'm going to just skip ahead quite a bit. Okay, and I'm going to skip ahead. And moving quite a bit faster. Maybe I'll go right near the end here. And again, we don't want these little bits on every one. We want them to appear fairly randomly. Okay, I'm actually not going to go any further. So let's see what all of our hand-drawn, our hard hand-drawn work has, how it has paid off. So let's save. Good time to save because I've done a lot of hand drawing. All right, let's click on frame 1 and let's click play. That looks pretty real. Okay, so we've done quite a bit in this project, and the great thing is that everything is hand drawn. Okay, kind of if you really want to be an animator, you've got to be able to hand draw things. Okay, all right. So from your timeline, make sure you use your slider and you push the slider all the way to the right, and I want you to click on the last frame, the final frame. Okay, so we're going to finish up the project. So from the top toolbar, I want you to click on New, and what that does is it creates a brand new frame. Okay, from the tool panel on the right, I want you to click on the text tool. It's the T. So let's click on the text tool, and it creates a text box here. So I'm just going to stretch it out a little bit, and I'm going to double click inside where it says type text here. All right, so I want you to type in fire animation. Make sure the F is capitalized and the A is capitalized. All right, once you get to the end of the word animation, I want you to hit the Enter key. So that should drop you down to the next line. And then I want you to type by, colon, space, your first name, your last name, and your class. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to highlight the second line here. Now, if it doesn't appear on 2 lines, then you can stretch out your text box so that it does. Okay? All right, so for the second line that has your name and your class, let's reduce the size of that font. We don't need to make it that big. So how about like size 40? And then for the top line where it says fire animation, it doesn't have to be 63, but how about I make it something like 55? Okay. So what we want is we want the title of your animation to be a little bit bigger than your name line. Now, I want to highlight the entire text box. So what I did was I started at the bottom here and I held the mouse button and then I kind of moved my mouse button in an upward left-hand motion. And then I want to change the font. So please find a font that's appealing to you. But remember, we want a font that's fairly easy to read because we want to kind of convey this information. So I found the font that I always use that I like recently. And again, from the text options panel, I want you to look for this button. It's the centering button. So I'm going to click on center. Okay, now you can experiment with shadow if you like. That looks pretty cool. And then what I want to do is I want to move this title to the center. I don't want you to click on effect, but if you want to experiment with bubble, you can. Okay, so let's see if we can put a background to this. So is that what this is? Maybe this is the text color. Oh, okay. So that's the text color. So putting it in red actually is kind of appropriate for what we just animated. Okay, so let's click outside of the text box. That's what we need to do. And then let's fill in a background color. So for this one, maybe black is appropriate. But if we choose black, then we kind of lose that shadow. I'd put a little shadow effect on it. So maybe, how about something like yellow or even orange? Now the good thing about using these colors is these are the colors I used for the fire. So it kind of keeps the color palette kind of intact. All right, so the last thing we want to do is, because this has text on it, we have to allow the audience to kind of have time to read it. So what we want to do is we want to adjust the duration of this frame. So make sure you're not clicked inside of the text box. You've clicked outside of the text box so nothing is highlighted. Then usually standard rule is for the credits page, this is called the credits page, we'll make it 5 seconds. Okay? All right, let's hit save. And let's use the slider and go all the way back to frame 1. Let's click on frame 1 and let's watch our completed animation of fire. Let's click play. Okay, so make sure, as an animator, I've said before, you've always got to be watching your movie, your animation, making sure that it makes sense so that you can debug any problems. Okay, so that's it. So this concludes this animation project on animated cartoon fire. Please save your work. I've already saved my work. And now is the time that you need to call Mr. Ueda over to show him your completed animation. All right, thanks for watching. Bye.